Hey everybody, Cody Menz here. A little special video for WoT's new. I'm going to be covering the brand new Tier 9 Object 777 version 2 and also the Char Futur 4, a little bit about the AE Phase 1, and a lot about Frontline. These tanks are basically the new prizes, the rewards for Frontline and Steel Hunter for this year. We can finally talk about them, and I'm going to go over which ones you should probably work towards and pick, and which ones or one that you should kind of avoid. For those that don't know, let me go. First, I'm going to just go over Frontline very briefly. Then I'm going to do the 777, Char Futur 4, briefly the AE Phase 1, and I'll wrap up with a little tidbits about other stuff happening in the game. So more or less, Frontline starts this week. There's also another Frontline coming in April, so April 6th to the 13th, one at the end of April, and then May. Sorry if I just blinded you there. Basically, compared to last year, it is different. There's only 4 Frontline this year, 4 weeks of it. There's 15 tiers you can level up each week. You cannot get previous rewards from a week. If you're on week 2 and you didn't do anything the first week coming up, you cannot go back and basically get these tokens that you need to get to tier 9 tanks. You can earn a maximum of 24 all year, 3 for each week, basically total 12 for Frontline and 12 for Steel Hunter. And the tokens do work. If you only get, say, 6 from Frontline and then 6 from Steel Hunter, you still can claim one of these tier 9 tanks, with those 12 tokens. It is important though, you cannot go back and get these tokens unless they have misled people and changed their mind. So say if this week coming up you only get 2, there is 0 chance of you getting both of the new tier 9 tanks. You only can get maximum of 1 unless they again change their mind. So that is very important that the grind, the grind is a little shorter, but you cannot go back and make it up like last year, where you could have started like the last 3 months of the year and gotten all the rewards from Frontline when it comes to like the AE Phase 1 and stuff. There are more tank rentals, which is nice. Airstrike got nerfed for shooting armored tanks. They massively improved the respawn system, and it's going to be very nice to where you're not going to get screwed over as much respawning. And some maps got rebalanced as well. Still just 2 maps for Frontline. I doubt we'll see another one this year. Steel Hunter's supposed to have 2 maps though. One of them is going to be the new map Berlin to kind of add on to it. So let's get into these tanks here. I'm going to start with the 777 version 2. Then we'll get to the Char Futur 4. I'm going to play one battle in each. And this isn't going to be like a review video. I'm just going to be glancing over these tanks very, very quickly. I'll have a review at a later date. Basically though, this tank sucks armor-wise, to put it nicely. It's a tier 9 heavy tank. It's worse than I feel like some medium tanks armor-wise. Now, oh man. You have a hairball back there, buddy? He's okay. He has a little bit of a cold. So lower glacis, very weak, about 200 millimeters effective armor. It's pretty large as well. Really angled upper glacis, however, once things get close to you and shoot down into it, they can pen it pretty easily. Turret's kind of weak as well. It's not that strong unless they hit your angled bits, and the cupolas are pretty weak. They're not the smallest things in the world, they're not the largest cupolas, but compared to most Russian heavies, they are kind of large. Now this little thing on the back, unfortunately, doesn't really have any armor. It shows up in the armor viewer here, but I'm pretty sure you do take damage there, from what I can tell. But this thing, it's kind of long, obviously being a heavy tank, but the armor on it isn't very good. So going forward here, a brief breakdown of its stats. The Char Futur 4 is also here. The closest comparison for the 777 is the T10, because they have identical guns, basically. Damage, penetration on the standard and premium, 340 millimeters on the heat shell is really nice. The guns are pretty comparable. I threw in the WZ-111-14 as well for comparison reasons. Do note the turret is in the center of the Object 777 version 2, so that makes this -6 degrees of gun depression not that good, especially if you're pointing over the front of the tank. The sides, it feels a little nicer. It's just one thing to note. Now, the gun on the 777 is a bit of a letdown, to be completely honest. The gun on the T10 is nice. People like the gun on the T10, and it's very similar even to the Object 257's gun. You know, T10 versus that. The 777, unfortunately, so even though it has that 6 degrees of gun depression, look at these stats here. So 0.4 aiming time. This is all just 100% cruise, no equipment or anything added on. So you have worse accuracy, worse damage per minute when it comes to the gun, and you can look at tanks.gg for the soft stats. The dispersion against the T10 as well. You have worse dispersion while moving. Your tank traverse, your turret traverse, after firing, all of those are higher when it comes down to that, which is pretty bad, to where it makes it feel even less accurate, especially moving around, which you would think, looking at this tank, is kind of its strong suit. It's a little smaller, you know, you might, and the armor doesn't, not that the T10 is great armor, but it has a better turret, you know, than the 777. You know, this tank definitely falls flat. The gun does not feel good, and they kind of buffed the 777 when they put 1.8, you know, on the live server as well. Now, moving down, you know, HP wise, it does have 850 or 1850, so 50 more HP than the T10. The armor values look like they're better than the T10, but you know, still, it just doesn't seem that well armored. Like, it definitely has some angles on it, and it can really trick people in like lower tiers, but the lower glacis is large and the turret's not super duper tough. When it comes to the mobility, you know, this is something important to note too. So your top speed's only 40 kilometers an hour. That is really low. You know, T10 and the WZ are 50. Your power to weight, you know, specific power is higher. So even though you might have a higher specific power, you're capped at 40 kilometers an hour, and your traverse speed is also less than the T10's. And pulling up the soft stats, and this is like the crippling blow of the Object 777 version 2, the terrain resistance on this thing versus the T10. So it's a 1.15 value on hard ground compared to 0.96 on the T10. Medium is 0.29 higher on the 777, and the soft ground is a pretty huge value as well, higher basically than the 777. It's about like 0.6 something higher. So what that means for those that don't understand basically the ground resistance is, not only do you have a lower top speed, you might have that little bit more specific power, but since your hidden soft stat values, the terrain resistance, are a lot higher, the 777 actually is very slow. It's harder to reach your top speed, it's harder to turn, you bleed a lot of speed, and the tank feels really freaking slow. Moving down, when it comes to your concealment, you got a little bit more camo, but nothing notable. These things are almost identical, which is surprising with how kind of low to the ground this thing is. And your V range, you only got 380 meters of V range, which compared to the 400 on these tanks, and honestly compared to medium tanks, your V range sucks. Like, not to beat up on this tank very much, and again, I'm gonna have a full review for this thing. This thing kind of sucks. We're gonna have to do a battle, and then I'll get into the Char Futur, and we'll kind of go over that tank as well here very quickly. But you know, when it comes to, you know, what's new kind of with Frontline and stuff, I do think like not being able to make up your battles is kind of a mistake, and I do know that my webcam's kind of covering the minimap here. I apologize for that, but again, I'm gonna have a better fleshed out review for each one of these tanks at a later date here. Now, as I went over, so your gun is a little bit worse than the T10's. You might have a smaller silhouette, but you are very long with that center mounted turret, so it makes it a little clunky sometimes to play this, and your mobility is lower. This thing, honestly, like, not to say it's gonna be one of the worst tier 9 tanks, but as of right now, it doesn't really have that much for it. Like, it does have that built-in large repair kit, which makes it less expensive to run, which is really nice. So you're not like a premium tank earning, you know, a higher amount of credits, but you're netting, you know, a little bit more than, say, a standard tier 9. So like ultimately when it comes down to it, performance-wise, this thing, it's nothing special. This is, you know, it's going to be a rare tank, to be completely honest, because no one's going to pick it. But, you know, this tank's been in the game files for years. It used to be a tier 10 tank, and it's been in the game files for about a year and a half as a tier 9 until they finally released it, you know, for Frontline here. But I feel like they should have given it better mobility. I could see it getting, you know, the better mobility, and possibly, like, if they didn't want to give it the better gun, I'd be fine. Like, if they just wanted to make it faster. But it should at least have 400 meters of V-range. It should have a little bit more mobility and or firepower. I think the mobility would be better for it to make it play like a little bit more like a fat medium tank. But it's just kind of sad, you know, to see this tank. And at first I was like, okay, are they gonna buff it at the last second? But they kind of did that when they put 1.8 in. So unfortunately this looks like, you know, what this tank's gonna be, unless they decide to... Oh god, that Udas is so lucky. Unless they decide to buff it before people are actually able to claim it from Frontlines. That's a small possibility, but I don't think they would have had us CCs, you know, review it and everything and not let us know about that. So, yeah. But even though I'm beating up on this tank a lot, like I know I'm being pretty harsh, I do like that the reward tank, it's something weird and quirky. It's not the most competitive thing, however, it's not something overpowered. So the AE Phase 1 that came out from Frontline last year, and you do have the option of picking that tank, arguably is a little bit better than the M103 in a sense. Like I think they both have their ups and downs, and they're very close to one another, but the M103 is probably a little bit worse than the AE Phase 1, but not anything crazy. I do like that this tank isn't unbalanced. You do have the benefit of the large repair kit, and you do have a unique tank, but you are getting something that's not as competitive as a tech tree tank, which, you know, I do feel like they could have given this tank a little bit more, a little bit more of something, just to make it a little bit better. But at the end of the day, the T10 is still a pretty darn good tier 9 heavy. Like a lot of people like the T10, including myself. So you are comparing it against a tier 9, or you know, a tier 9 tank that a lot of people do like. I'm just gonna make my own little path here so I don't get shot by a T30. He's probably still gonna shoot me. Who am I kidding? Alright, we're tied up here. I'm just gonna keep pushing. What the hell? Come on, guys, let's do it. Anybody? Man. So, like, unfortunately, like, this tank, I will say, out of the 3, and, like, I haven't gotten to the Char Futur 4, but we're getting to that next. Out of the 3, this probably is the least competitive. Oh, God, I got really lucky. He hit me on my turret, like, on the angled part. So, unfortunately, you do have that to contend with. Alright, I just need to turn. He's definitely gonna pen me this next time, but I'm trying. Come on, team. You guys can shoot him for me. I'm trying to get shots from these guys right here. There we go. So I don't take a second shot from him. Come on. Oh god, he's about to reload. Oh lord, no. There we go. And go figure, I'm actually having a pretty good fight. Right now, like, you guys can't see the minimap, but there are people very close to our base right now, which is starting to scare me, but we're just going to keep pushing ahead. What the hell? Now, this tank, like I said, it has been in the game files for a very long time, and some people, you know, who have been in, you know, playing the game since, say, like 2011, 2012, might be tempted to pick this up just because we've been teased with it before. And, like, not to say I think Wargaming's banking on that. The tank, you know, it's definitely not the best of the 3 that you can pick, but I just wish that they added just a little bit more, like mobility, V range, and or, you know, the gun. I don't think it needs all 3. It's not as bad as needing like a mega buff. It just, does feel like a little bit lackluster for a tank that a lot of people are going to be, you know, spending a lot of time on. I'm still going to cap here because there's 2 people at our cap still. I'm not going to play like super duper safe, because I would like to keep getting some damage. There is a Pershing that might hit us. Okay, come on. Ah, he just hit me. I guess. Oh, big boo boo, Cody. Not good, not good, not good. I didn't think I would still spot it. Okay, I need to definitely play safe now. Oh Lord, I don't want to blow it. Just for me trying to get a top gun while making a video. Not about to screw my team over just for personal gain. So, you know, like I said, I am being a little harsh on the tank, but, you know, rightfully so. Like, people are going to be spending a lot of time when it comes to getting these tanks. I do think it's a little weak, but it's not like useless. It's not like you're spending time to unlock like a really crappy tier 9. But out of the 3, I do think that this is the least competitive. So we got a high caliber award, and, you know, a pretty good fight when it comes down to it. Do note though, I was playing against, you know, some lower tiers, to where this thing against just tier 9s and 10s, the armor, what scares you is basically you don't have like any piece of armor that you feel confident taking a shot in, which is, you know, the downside of it. Alright, so on to the Char Futur 4. This tank, I'm not going to look at the armor model because, you know, basically you got yourself not too much armor. Like for a medium tank, or screw it, I'll throw it in right now though. So as a medium tank, like it does have a little bit of armor, but ultimately you're going to get penned pretty much every single time, as you can see here, unless something like ricochets, you know, ricochets off your basically upper glacis if it's pretty unlucky, because it is 45 millimeters, but armor wise, you know, this thing isn't really going to be blocking many shots unless you get, you know, lucky bounces and stuff like that. So let's pop into the comparison really fast. When it comes to this tank, so this is pretty unique. This is another tank to where it's not perfect. It has its ups and downs, which I really like. So again, it's not going to blow. The closest tank that you can compare it to is the Batchat 25T AP, and it's kind of like a tier 9 Batchat Burresque in a sense, but it does have 4 shells instead of the 2. This thing has high upside and it's got really low downside, kind of like the Batchat 25T line. You have a 390 damage gun, so higher than the Batchat, and I threw the standard B in there just for the hell of it. If you're using it like 3 shots at a time, which you probably shouldn't for the standard B, but just for comparison's sakes. You have a lot of penetration, which is nice, and your premium shell on this, you know, you do have a heat shell, so 330 millimeters of pen, which is, again, pretty darn nice to have, especially compared to the Batchat. You know, only 300 damage here, but you do have 2 more shells, you know, 232 for the penetration. So I like that about this tank. Now, the one thing to note, so your reload on this, and these are just all 100% values, you have a 39.16 reload, plus, so you have those 4 shells and 390 damage, which is nice that you have that alpha packed into less shells, so less can go wrong. However, you have a 4-second reload time between each shell, so it's really hard to get that damage out without you taking shots. You really have to think about when you're shooting, because comparing to like the Batchat 25T here, you know, that has 2.73. You know, it's pretty freaking nice, you know. Now, you know, it's just something to where it feels really weird. 4 seconds is pretty long, but that's where you do have that high alpha upside, but it's a little weird playing with the 4 seconds. Gun depression, you know, 7.5 is pretty nice. Aiming time's awesome, and the accuracy is freaking sweet. Now, DPM, you know, you're pretty much in line with the Batchat 25 AP. Not surprising, because you have a basically high alpha autoloader. When it comes to HP, your HP is pretty nice. You got higher end HP, and we already went over the armor. Like, it is better than these 2 tanks, but you're still not really going to be bouncing things. Let's be honest. Now, mobility. So I'm going to get into the mobility here. You got the highest specific power out of these, you do have a lower top speed. So similar to the Object 777 version 2, your traverse speed is also lower, so turning is going to feel a little more sluggish. Now, looking at the soft stats again, I'm just going to read them off here. And so I skipped past them on the gun, I forgot. So your on-the-move accuracy is significantly worse than the Batchat 25 AP. Even though you have that better overall accuracy, your on-the-move accuracy, you'll see me playing, is significantly worse than most Tier 9 medium tanks. However, your soft stats for basically terrain resistance here versus the Batchat 25 AP, you have significantly higher terrain resistance on hard ground and medium ground. So the Char Futur is actually going to feel a little more sluggish on those two. However, it is a little bit better on soft ground than the Batchat. So driving on grass and roads and paved stuff, the Char Futur is going to feel a little more sluggish, plus have 5 less kilometers an hour for its top speed. However, driving in like swampy areas and stuff, it's actually going to outperform the Batchat 25 AP a little bit. So that's something to note that you don't just see going off of the stats. Then when you get down here, camouflage is almost the same and the view range is the same as the Batchat. So let's pop into a battle here. I know this video is getting pretty long too, but I pretty much figured that, considering I'm trying to cover 2 tanks. Little overview, you know, since the NDA is basically lifted. But I'm going to do a more in-depth review of these tanks. You know, we have rentals, which I 100% agree. We should get rentals. We should not get these tanks for free, basically, and skip the grinds. The grinds seem like a few people did the math on it. They get like a tier 9 tank. So if you're just looking just for the 4 stages of Frontline, I think they guesstimate it. It's like 55 to 60% of what the grind was last year. Like, do note, like, you know, it's kind of, I didn't really look too much into it. I don't know if that's including the whole year or like each week, the amount of time you have to grind. Go figure. I got freaking the smallest map. I got the smallest map for a tank that probably isn't going to play very well on it, but whatever. We'll roll with it. I might actually play the other side for once. The reload on this thing though is really long, which the, you know, tier 9 and 10 Batchat 25 aren't my favorite because of that long reload. Some people really like them, but, you know, just do note, you know, the reload on this is long, plus the 4 seconds of the reload time between the shells. Levi's back there. He's you know, I just finished my stream tonight, which is why I'm dressed up like a tomato. Probably should have said that more in the beginning of the video here, but Levi has a little bit of a cold. He's patiently, or somewhat impatiently, waiting to go to bed here. Alright. Ooh, man. Let's see. I usually don't play this side. I'm a little bit worried to push up here just because I am in a new tank. We're gonna go for it though. Go figure. I don't think he spotted me. I think somebody else might have gotten me. Okay, I guess we're gonna go for it here. Not that I have too much of a choice. I was kind of getting taken along for a ride there. Crap. So the on-the-move accuracy, like, not that I'm taking very far shots, but I knew that was going to be tough. When I was playing this earlier, before this video, it was pretty hard to hit things moving around at full speed. Crap. This is where, honestly, like, I'm trying to remind myself that the 4 seconds or on this reload time, I kind of forgot, and I'm like sitting out there trying to take another shot. This tank is unique, you know, in that regard. I don't think it's too good. I don't think it's too bad. I do think it's better than the 777 competitively though. It's just a different take. It's a different take basically on the Batchat 25 that's in the tech tree. God, my team is getting freaking clobbered. Calm down, little dog. It's past Levi's bedtime. Oh man. I was say, is that Tragic? That looked like Tragic lost his little logo on the tank there. Hi, I see you there, buddy. He's like, give me a biscuit. Oh man, we are getting massacred. Oh, crap. This is where I'm so getting screwed up here. The 4 seconds does feel weird, like, especially trying to play like in a little bit more confined setting here where you want to pump your shells out and then run away. I really don't want to die by Artie. Alright. This is where, you know, the reload time is really clunky on this thing, and I'm dead. Anyway, this battle sucked. I really hate the reload time between it, but this is where, like, I'm gonna have a more fleshed out review of this tank. And I really wish I got a better freaking map than this, but stat-wise, I think this is pretty much on par with the Tier 9 Batchat 25 AP. Just, you know, a little bit different makeup on the gun, and, you know, the reload times, and, you know, the alpha, and it does have that higher penetration, which is nice. Comparing, you know, looking at the AE Phase 1, which most people already know about, like, if I had to rank the 3 tanks, I would definitely say I would put the AE Phase 1 and the Char Futur 4 kind of on the same foothold, or the same level, I should say, and then the 277, or the, not 277, 777 version 2, it's a mouthful, it's not easy to roll off the tongue. I feel like that's kind of a very distant third. But I would probably say the AE Phase 1 would be my favorite, but that's just because the long reload time of the Char Futur feels really weird, especially coupled with that 4 second. In any event though, thanks for getting through that. Last but not least, so when it comes to, and again, all these links are going to be in the video description, Wargaming is thinking about bringing back the BL-10 ISU-152, and they're putting a K on the end, as a Tier 8 premium tank. Possibility, who knows, it's on super test, and basically, you know, it's the BL-10 slapped on the ISU-152, and they're trying to charge money for it. I personally don't think it's unbalanced or anything, but it's just kind of weird that they're adding it back in, but you don't have to buy it, and, you know, I'm sure people are going to throw a fit about it. For those that haven't seen about 1.8, there's 2 new styles, one for the IS-3 and the other for the Kranwagen, that you only can pick them up and buy them until 1.9 comes out. Then they remove them from being purchased, but you do keep them if you buy them. I still feel like these are a little bit high for skins. Like, I feel like 1,500 and maybe like 3,000 or, you know, 3,500 or something would be better. I think they're a little pricey, but they do look pretty sweet. M54 Renegades offered on the NA server as well. If you haven't seen that, this tank's pretty darn good. You know, ultimately, you know, the bundles are, unfortunately, they don't include the special style that you can get from the Marathon, but the tank is pretty darn sweet and very good for Frontline on top of that. And last but not least, talking about the Kranwagen, make sure you put in your code if you're on the NA server, wherever the hell this code is. There you go. Yeah, if you don't put it in, you're not going to get some extra missions, unfortunately, for the on track. But yeah, thank you very much for watching this video here. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I know it was a little on the long side, about, you know, 28 minutes, 29 minutes here. But you know, thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you like basically Frontline coming up, and, you know, I help you out a little bit with deciding which tanks you might want to get. Check back for some reviews. I'll probably have them out in 13 days with these rentals. I'll have them out before then. You know, or if you don't even want the Tier 9s, you still earn some stuff. You know, bonds and basically credits for playing Frontline and Steel Hunter. Thanks for watching. Have a nice night. Tomato Cody out. Or not a nice night. See ya.